I'm Logan Crawford, and right now on the Spotlight Network, we're diving into a chilling and prophetic novel that feels more relevant than ever before. It is called World War III. It started with EMP. It's written by a terrific author. His name is Albert Clark, and he combines decades of military research and foresight to craft a gripping tale of future warfare with insights drawn from real military scenarios and groundbreaking technologies. This book offers a startling look at the potential realities of global conflict. We're delighted to have this very talented author join us here today on Spotlight. We thank the team at Bookside Press for helping us put him in the spotlight today. And we ask viewers like you to support authors like him by buying his wonderful book and by subscribing to our TV channel, streaming on Roku, Apple TV, and Amazon Fire TV. Albert, thank you so much for joining us here today on Spotlight.
Well, it's good to be talking to you too. So, uh, this is a story I wanted to get out. Uh, I originally was in Air War College, which is 48 graduate semester hours, and my second term paper was we need to worry about war in the Middle East. It was rejected by the Air War College in 1987 because we would never send tanks and troops to the Middle East. So after I graduated with a different term paper, I wrote the book to get the word out to people. And we've had several EMP exercises since the book came out. And it was used as part of a war game that Swartzkopf and Powell attended for a year in 1989. They 1 week and a month they played war games,
Mm.
and part of the war game was what are we going to do about the Middle East?
Yeah.
And so uh, they took that from my book that had just recently been published in '87,
Mhm.
and uh, uh, played their war game. And then they called me up from time to time and say, "Well, the generals have decided they're going to do this. Does that work?" And I would sometimes I'd answer back, "No, that won't work." So
Amazing.
anyway, that's the purpose of the book. The book starts out with me by a different name. I traveled around a lot to research and development programs all over the Air Force and a few to the Army and a few to the Navy. But anyway, mainly Air Force. And the book starts out with me having finished a meeting in Los Angeles at Space Division. And uh, we, so I'm in my motel and the alarm doesn't go off or anything, but I wake up at 2 o'clock in the morning for some reason
Mm.
and I realize it's dark and my clock alarm in the motel isn't working. So I look at my watch and it's not working, but I have an old wind-up alarm that I use regularly. It's got glow in the dark numbers and it says it's 2 o'clock, but nothing else is on. So I try to call the desk and discover the phone's dead. So I get up and I walk over to the window and Los Angeles is dead. It's dark. There's not a single light anywhere. And so I curiosity, this is a major power failure. So I go down to the lobby, uh, carefully using my phone as a light. I walk
Mhm.
down to the stairs because the elevator doesn't work to the lobby, and they don't know what's going on. So I sort of walk out into the street, and there's stalled cars everywhere. And
Mhm.
about that time, an airplane plane comes in for a landing, but it has no lights and there's no lights on the ground. And it crashes next to the runway,
Wow.
missing the hotels, fortunately, at Los Angeles International. And so I'm thinking, gee, this might be an EMP attack. What that amounts to is some third world country like North Korea and Iran have both said they want to do that to the United States. In my book, what they do is they have nuclear weapons on board satellites that are launched by other countries for them, and they are orbiting over the Earth at any time. And somebody in one of those countries pushes the button, and they blow up over the United States at about 250, 300 miles above the Earth. Well, part of Air War College, I learned about EMP. Back in 1962, Starfish Prime was a test of an anti-missile missile which had a nuclear warhead. So they used it to see if they could shoot down
Excuse me.
some of our own Minuteman missiles, and it worked great. Well, that was 900 miles from Hawaii. This is before transistors. Lights came on and went off. Burglar alarms came on and went off. Cars stalled in the middle of the street. Some traffic lights were just simply burned out from over electricity, too much electricity in the air. And gee, good thing we didn't have transistors back then because every transistor would have been burned out. So we signed the SALT I treaty. Said, "Oh, no nuclear weapons in space." Anyway, that's why we signed the SALT I treaty
Yeah,
because we didn't want nuclear weapons to blow up above the United States.
right.
With our anti-missile missiles trying to protect us from missiles might have done us more harm than laying the missiles hit.
Yeah.
You might lose a city by it hitting, but you don't lose everything. So there's no so anyway, there's no police department because there's no communication, there's no radios, there's no telephone, there's no the police cars won't start because they've got electronic ignitions and electronic fuel injection. The fire department trucks won't run, same reason. They've got electronics in them. And so here we are with no peacekeeping forces in the United States. And naturally, you would expect riots to break out as soon as people figure that out. The burglar alarms don't work, and there's no police and no fire department. So, anyway, he's sitting there wondering what to do. And this old Mercury car shows up coming out of the parking garage all by its lonesome, the only one with headlights on. It was back in 1960s model Mercury. And it turns out it's the he'd been there many times, and when he was just sitting around in the evening, he would go down to the bar, maybe have one drink for the whole evening, and sit there and read his book because he was always reading books when he wasn't actually working. And so they would come, and sometimes he was the only customer. So the two girls would come by and talk to him and say hello and so forth, and but they were the ones in the car.
Mm.
So they see him and they stop and they say, and they ask, "What's going on?" There's a big fire raging across the street from the airplane crashing. Their car is stalled everywhere, so you have to weave in and out around the cars to go anywhere.
Mm.
And even though it's 2 o'clock in the morning, and he said, "Can you take me to Space Division?" What's that? And, well, I have the address. It's not far from the airport. So he drives them down to the airport, and I mean down from the airport down to the space division in Los Angeles, where he was working on a space program naturally. And as he's going up to the gate's locked, and they've got armed guards at the gate.
Mm.
And he drives up, and they sort of halfway recognize him, and he's got his military ID because he's retired military. And they tell him, we don't know what's going on. The power went out, and we put up extra guards. He said, "You'll have to turn around and go back." So he turns around to go back. And about that time, a cargo truck comes, not a semi truck, but just a big cargo truck, comes flying around the corner, going too fast, and tips over. He crashes. And so he stops, he gets out of the car, runs over to the truck, and discovers it's full of terrorists.
Mm.
And they've got a nuclear weapon on board. They
Wow.
were planning to blow up the space division, but they wrecked the truck before they got it in the gate.
Wow.
So in the meantime, the security police that were at the gate come rushing out also and find terrorists, and they shoot a few because they've got machine guns that are trying to shoot the security police, but they haven't really recovered from the accident yet. So anyway, he's just averted a nuclear bomb going off in Space Division, which would have killed everybody there and destroyed all the buildings there. It's a small nuclear bomb. It's not a big one like you carry on an airplane, but
Mm.
more like the suitcase type. So he goes back onto the base. They're welcoming him now, and he talks to people he knows, other officers that have known him from other trips, and they don't really have a whole lot of help for him. But he wants to somehow get back to his home in Ohio, where his family is. Well, it's going to be kind of difficult with the only operating vehicle he sees anywhere is this old Mercury with these two girls in it that
Yeah.
that were, bar girls trying to be actresses, and so uh, they make a plan that they're going to take him back where he came from because one of them is actually from the state of Ohio, and another one is just beyond that. So they agree to they'll try to drive him out there. Well, the military provides him some weapons like M16s and ammo, and they take off heading that way. In the meantime, Los Angeles is burning from riots and no police and no fire department.
Wow.
So they dodge firestorms as they go try to get out of town, and they make their way across the United States back to his home, which takes them about 6 months because every town most of the towns have been overrun or destroyed by looters and so forth. But they found a few towns along the way that are set up barricades and let him in because he seems peaceful and keeps the bad guys out. And he works his way across the United States. Eventually gets to the Mississippi River, where, gee, all the bridges have been blown on the Mississippi River. So how's he going to get this old 1960s Mercury over the Mississippi River? Well, what turns out is the terrorists had uh, sabotaged the bridges that had explosives underneath the bridges that were hidden there at some point in the past. And all it took was a terrorist to come along and push the button to blow up the bridge. Well, in truth, we did find some bridges that had been sabotaged or they had explosives there, but because of age, the fuses didn't work
Mm,
when we found them. But in the book, they work and
amazing.
blows up all the bridges. So he's stuck in Missouri trying to figure out a way to get over the bridge. Now I can't go to St. Louis because that town is burning, and there are rioters moving south, going into the farms trying to find food and water. So, so they
Amazing.
stranded there. Anyway, that's the first half of the book, and all the adventures they have as they try to travel across the country. The second half of the book is an enlisted guy that was driving a tank, an M1 tank, in as uh, help for the French because the Islamic nations have attacked Europe
Mm.
with conventional weapons, and the U.S. Army sent tanks over to help him out. Well, his tank gets destroyed, but he managed to escape. So part of the story is him trying to figure out how to get from southern France to somewhere peaceful that is still controlled by good people. So basically, he's trying to get back to Great Britain because Great Britain had a lot of terrorist attacks, but they weren't in danger of being overrun by military forces like tanks and so forth. So anyway, that's the story, and I wrote it to warn people about EMP, to encourage people to have an old car sitting around that'll still run, have
Exactly.
the old style phones with the dial,
Yep, the rotary phones. It's
yeah,
really
little
a great
rotary phone.
cautionary tale because so much of our lives are dictated by this today. Our bank accounts are on here, our jobs are on here, our personal information. And like you said, with an EMP, an electromagnetic pulse, it could all go away instantaneously. And society, as you described in your book, would break down very, very rapidly. Even when a storm is coming, fights start breaking out at the gasoline stations over who's going to get gasoline. So you can
Exactly.
imagine if, alarm systems aren't working, phones aren't working, lights aren't working, vehicles aren't working, hospitals are in darkness. I mean, it's an absolute nightmare. It's a great cautionary tale because people have to wake up. Hopefully, our incoming president is more on the ball about the threats that face this nation because we're no better off today than we were on September 10th, 2001. You know, We were struck and we were found on September 11th, we were found to be completely helpless at a terrorist attack, and that was minor compared to the attacks that could take place, like you described. All the time you're telling your story, I picture a young Charleston Heston driving around in that old Mercury, the one survivor, the Omega Man. I think it would be a great movie, my friend. This is a terrific book, folks, and I think you'll just, one, be entertained by it, but two, also be informed by it, which of course is Albert Clark's mission, is to inform you about the dangers of electromagnetic pulses. The name of the book is In World War III. It started with EMP. It's written by Albert Clark. He combines decades of military expertise and experience, research, and foresight to craft a gripping novel, a tale, a cautionary tale of future warfare with insights drawn from real military scenarios and groundbreaking technologies. Albert, thank you so much for joining me here today on Spotlight.
Thank you. I enjoy it. Say the book was written a long time ago, but this year I decided I had extra money, so I figured I'd try to promote my books.
Well, I'm glad you did, and I think it's a great book. It might have been written a long time ago, but it's still a very, very worthwhile message because the threat is still very, very real, perhaps more real now than ever before. To the folks at home, I'm Logan Crawford, thanking you for your time this time. Until next time on Spotlight.